Hi, I'm Mark Vines. I'm the co-principal horn of the LPO.
Hi, I'm Joshua Brown. I'm a composer, and last year I was on the LPO Young Composers scheme.
It's an interesting choice of piece, this, because for me, it's one of the earliest pieces of classical music that I really sort of fell in love with. And I've had the fortune to perform it countless times since then. I'm I'm wondering how you feel about the piece. What sort of effect does it have on you as a listener and as a composer?
I think it's a really interesting one with Beethoven because Beethoven makes you feel differently whether you're being a listener and just enjoying the sheer energy and power of his writing, or if you're looking at it from a really sort of composer point of view where you're wanting to take inspiration from all these bits. And as a listener, you just sit listening to this recording and imagine that you're right in the middle of the orchestra where the conductor is and just letting this sound wash over you, and it's completely joyful. And then as a composer, you sat there thinking, this is 200 years old, and yet it's full of energy and angular, edgy kind of ideas that creep up on you unexpectedly, and it's so exciting. When I was a young composer on the LPO scheme, our task was to be inspired by Beethoven. And what we all tried to reflect, I think, in our pieces for the scheme was the sense of energy and the sense of hugely ambitious ideas that feel completely fresh, even 250 years after his birth.
When this last movement kicks off, it's from the moment it starts to the end of the movement, it's 200 miles an hour all the way through.
Oh,
And
completely.
yeah, that feeling you talk about of being in the middle of the orchestra, it's amazing. But for me, I went back and listened to this performance just the other day before this talk, and I get that same adrenaline listening to it as I do playing it. It's amazing, actually. It never gets old, this piece.
Is that an adrenaline of the feeling of being on stage and waiting for that downbeat so that you can have that da kind of thing? Or is it a different kind of adrenaline when you listen back?
It's a bit of everything. Yeah, I guess as soon as you listen back, it puts you back on the stage. And so the adrenaline on the stage for me is twofold. It's the excitement of the music, and it's just also the sort of piece that you can't. There's no half measures when you perform this piece. You have to
Yeah.
absolutely go for it. So it just brings it all back. But I don't think you need to be a performer to get that sense of adrenaline. I think it just makes your heart race. That's what I find.
Yeah. I think that feeling of your heart racing as the music goes on comes from the way the conductor exploits this forward motion all the way through the piece, with the one in the bar making these phrases really, really malleable so that you can get this sense of always going forward. And it just completely kicks in for me when you have that horn bit after the initial ideas, and that really high, really edgy kind of idea for the horn is just so new and so bright in the texture, because everything else has been sort of mid-range violins doing wonderfully intricate stuff, and then the horn kicks in with this sort of, here's some power.
Yeah, it does, and then it happens again and again until it. I mean, the last minute of the piece when the horns, they're really going for it. But it's interesting that you talk about that first horn entry, well, not the first entry, but the first big sort of loud high tune. Watching back on this performance, next time you view it, have a look at the bass player closest to the horns, because as soon as it starts, he just looks over and it's just like he wants to join in. It's so funny.
But then Beethoven writes this amazing fortissimo, the loudest dynamic you get in Beethoven. And it really is a call to arms almost for the orchestra to really give it some welly. And it's not a very technical term, but it's the best I can think of.
Yeah, I mean, it starts loud, then it gets louder. There's a wonderful moment in the middle of it where there's this repeated phrase, and probably about 4 bars, and then suddenly you just repeat it again, and it's like you turn the dynamic up. So you just play it again, but louder, and it's so exciting.
Yeah.
And the other thing about it is that there's these couple of sections where it just ratchets up the tension. I mean, I don't know how it does it technically. I mean, you know more than me as a composer, but it just sort of seems to ratchet up the tension. It's just like someone's revving their car just here and there, and then before they really put the foot down.
One of the things he does is he starts it with these very regular 4-bar phrases for the tune. And then as the piece goes on, as you say, it gets much, much louder as it goes on. But you get these really quiet moments, really delicate moments in the flutes and the woodwind that are actually full of energy and anticipation, because you know the loud stuff's coming back. But because it's Beethoven, you have no idea when. And that's really amazing.
I always think those bits are like a sort of suspense movie, when someone's sort of creeping down the corridor and you know there's something going to happen. You know it's coming, but it's like, oh, what's it going to be? When's it going to be?
Yeah,
it's amazing.
I remember performing this piece, and even with the music in front of you, you're still not quite sure when that next phrase is going to kick in, because you expect it to be so regular, and then you've got this 5-bar phrase with a rest before you come in on the offbeat, and it's so off kilter and like a stab through like the heart of the body of the orchestra, just to say, here's a new idea, no preparation, wham, there you go.
It's fantastic to hear you've been on both sides of it, or all three sides of it, as a listener, composer, and performer. That must be pretty special, actually, to see every angle.
It's amazing. I think one of the best things about being a musician just as a whole is that you can get that very rounded sort of view of pieces, because you can look at it from a technical, how do I achieve this effect kind of way as a composer or a performer. But then you can also just, even as a player within the texture, you can sit back at times and go, this is amazing. Even with the socially distanced performance, you can see the connection between the performers and the real getting inside the music and living it as it's played. And it's really exciting as an audience member to watch that video. And I think the filming really helps, because you can see the really intense concentration on people's faces as they live this music, and it's wonderful to see.
Thank you.